Disclaimer, the comments made in this video are intended for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to offend anyone.
Look, between you people, don't talk to me that way. You're just a lightweight. Don't talk to me that way. I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way.
Since reporters have chosen wokeness over truth, they deserve everything they get. Heel and welcome to another video. Today it's about woke reporters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to try to keep... I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. These were people. This was an actual... You know, it happened a few days ago, and
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN,
all right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President.
We all know President-elect Trump just can't stand CNN, right? That's our opening number. What else do you call people coming in en masse over your fence to get into your home? An invasion? No?
It's really great to see everybody on this beautiful, beautiful day in Washington, D.C. Okay, question? Yeah, go ahead. Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
It's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
Still a fan favorite, I just know it. January 2025, it's fake news versus Donald J. Trump.
Hope it was an incorrect report.
When was the last time you heard from him?
I don't want to say. Yeah.
You pointed to me. Just a quick question about that. So you haven't made any contact, though, just to make sure.
With who?
The North Koreans.
I don't want to say. I won't say that.
Okay.
We have a good relationship with North Korea. As good as you can have. I mean, we have a good relationship with North Korea. I have a good relationship with Kim Jong-un, and I hope he's okay. And somebody would say, oh, that's terrible. No, it's not terrible. I hope he's okay. And I think it was a fake report done by CNN.
Can I ask you a question?
What do you have? Go ahead. No, that's enough. Go ahead.
Can I ask? But that wasn't my question.
The problem is you don't write the truth. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I want to go to the next
Can I ask you a question about...
No, not CNN, please. Go ahead.
The White House has not responded to these
I told you. CNN is fake news. Don't talk to me. Go ahead, please.
But he says he was retaliated against, and that's why he was removed from his job. Do you have a response to that?
Okay, next question.
CNN can't seem to ever catch a break, can they? For people who claim to want peace, they seem to want to egg on international fights.
We want to have confidence in the current leadership of the Pentagon and the way the defense situation has been operating for the last several years. I mean, from the Afghanistan pullout, which was an extreme debacle for which no one was held accountable. We've had spy balloons flying over the United States. We built a $300 million pier as a public relations stunt, which wound up killing an American service member. I'd say I've had just about enough of the so-called insiders running the Defense Department. I think we ought to give Pete Hegseth a chance because he's got two insiders. All the criticism of him is that he's not the expected Washington pick. And I'm just saying to you that the American people just voted against the expected Washington pick. So he's got 20 years in service, Afghanistan, Iraq, 2 Bronze Stars, Princeton, Harvard. Yeah, he's on TV, but so are the rest of us.
By the way, that list you just gave,
I think he ought to be given a chance. That list
you just gave is really interesting because you highlighted a bunch of things that the civilian leadership of the country decided on. In the military, their job was just to execute. They executed.
How did it go?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
How did it go?
In terms of the decision making, you're assigning decision making responsibility to the military over things that civilians are responsible for.
So you make a good point. The civilian leadership made decisions, and then the people they put in charge of the Pentagon Pentagon carried it out. And it was all pretty much a disaster. So now we have a new president who I think got elected in part because of some of those disasters. And he's going to put in some of the non-insiders in charge of not just this agency, but a bunch of them. Now, look, they've got to perform. They've got to perform. I mean, we got 53 U.S. senators that are Republicans. And Pete Hegseth, he's an American hero. The man won 2 Bronze Stars for his service, and he's been a champion for veterans. He's going to have to go up there just like everybody else and prove his knowledge of how to do this job. He's not immune from that, but we ought to give this man a chance, in my opinion.
Wokies have been trying to find something to be made about lately, so they chose the president-elect's nomination. Are you upset that he used to be a host on Fox? The man's gotta work, no?
We don't agree on this.
Yes, you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at
Yes,
all.
you do.
No, I want responsibility. I think
You desperately want censorship.
No, if I want a censorship...
You want censorship so bad you can taste it.
No, that's not true. It's not true. I think that there's right and wrong.
And I think that you want censorship.
And I think that when you have a platform that's as big as yours and as powerful as yours and as influential as yours, and you are a person of consequence to the world with what you do, that there is a certain responsibility that goes along with what you have on your platform and what you put out to the world. And I think that's important. You don't see that responsibility.
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and if people want the law changed, they should talk to their elected representative and get the law changed, and then we will adhere to the law.
Okay.
But if you want us to go beyond the law, that is us deciding to be censors.
So,
and I'm against censorship. I'm in favor of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't like say things you don't like. Otherwise, it has no meaning.
I think I get why Don Lemon dyed X. Trump supporters have been rubbing the victory in his face. When X was Twitter, so many shadow bans would have happened.
We look at the 5 cases, 6 months from now, a year from now. Let's assume all 5 of them go to trial. He's guilty of 3 so far.
Wait, what do you mean he's guilty of 3 so far?
Well, he's been convicted of 3, sorry.
What do you mean? No, he hasn't.
I love this. Eugene Carroll was guilty.
That was not a conviction. That was a civil case.
Okay, well, yes, so that's what I'm talking about. So that
okay, but there's a big difference.
It's still, he was convicted. He was guilty of that. He got a settlement. In the Trump organization, they're guilty there.
Okay, again, was still civil, liable.
Yes, of course. But these are the cases we're talking about. And in the third one...
she's a lawyer, right?
Yeah, of course. And in the third one... I'm just talking about the 5 cases. Yes, some are civil, obviously, and some are not. Some are criminal. But if we look at all 5 cases...
You said 3 convictions. Now you're walking it back.
I'm not walking it back. There's 3 in which he was...
You should walk it back.
Okay,
I'm so glad Megan is here.
Of the 5, 3 of them, he's either guilty or...
You got a bad result.
Yeah, got a bad result. There are 2 more. If he is found guilty of those 2 more, Megan, and 5 of 5, he had a bad result, way to frame it, will you chalk all 5 up in your mind to 5 different jurisdictions, 5 different prosecutors, 5 different juries and or judges, all conspiring to get him?
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. That's all I wanted to hear your answer to. 5 of 5 different jurisdictions. Yeah. You think it's all lawfare?
Eugene Carroll, they changed the law so that she could bring a civil lawsuit against him, and she did. New York went 87% for Joe Biden. That fix was in right from the start. The fraud trial that Letitia James brought against him has never been brought. There's no victims. The banks who were involved said, we didn't lose a penny. What are we doing here? We weren't damaged. Nobody was complaining except Tish James, who ran for office saying, I will get him. Then you have Alvin Bragg, who's a George Soros-funded prosecutor who doesn't like to prosecute any crime in New York City, where I lived for 17 years, except if your name is Donald Trump. Let's go down to Georgia, where Fani Willis and Nathan Wade couldn't keep their libidos in check long enough to actually bring this case against Donald Trump. It's a repeat of what was happening in January 6th up in the case with Judge Chutkan, who loathes Trump and has sentenced almost every J6 defendant to way more jail time than their counterparts would get. Those are falling apart because of presidential immunity, which was handed down by the Supreme Court, who said you cannot bring a criminal case against a sitting president for any official act. Those cases have been gutted. Also a Supreme Court ruling saying the same on January 6 defendants in general. And that leaves us with Florida and the documents. And Trump has torn that apart because Jack Smith wasn't properly appointed and isn't the right counsel. But there are other issues. They haven't even gotten to presidential immunity there. And so that one's going nowhere as well. And by the way, they're going to appeal it up to the 11th Circuit. Sort out. The 11th Circuit is conservative, and thank God so is the current Supreme Court. They're not going to tolerate that nonsense.
Let me ask you about...
Megan is just brilliant. How do you want to ask questions about legalities and conspiracies if you don't even know the difference between liabilities and convictions? So you're saying you didn't even watch a single season of Suits?
What do you think of his choice of J.D. Vance as vice president?
Very excited. I was the first member of Congress to endorse J.D. Vance when he was running for Senate, and I vetted him pretty closely, of course, because I'm one of those strong President Trump supporters.
This is a man who compared him to Hitler, though. Isn't that concerning?
Let me finish. I vetted him on his statements, his articles he'd written. And of course, you know, JD's an American. He can change his mind. And what changed his mind is he watched President Trump in his first presidency. And it was the policies and the decisions President Trump made in his first 4 years that changed his mind. And, you know, I really respect that. And I think Americans have the right to change their mind, especially based on someone's actions, not their words. And so when people are judging J.D. Vance, I think they can also look to see that we can watch his actions. And as a senator, I'm really proud of him. I'm proud of the legislation that he's voted on. I'm proud of the work that he's done on the committees he serves on. And I'm really excited President Trump picked him.
So Vance, he said that the UK could be the first Islamist country with nuclear weapons under the new Labour government. Doesn't that paint a sour picture for relations with the UK?
Well, let's talk about the words of the Democrats and Joe Biden that have also labeled President Trump as a fascist, labeled all of us as Nazis and Hitler, completely lied, demonizing him so much so that a young man, a 20-year-old, which is hard to imagine, actually climbed onto a roof and tried to murder President Trump.
You said that the Democrats wanted the shooting of Trump to happen.
Let's talk about people like you.
Where's your evidence
let's talk
of
about
that?
people like you.
But where's your evidence of those
demonize
claims?
People like me, President Trump. You know, I have some of the most highest amount of death threats because of people like you, because you choose to only take certain words from people, and then that's what you want to report. Shame on you. Shame on you.
But where's your evidence?
No. You're the problem. And where's this woman from?
The Times.
You're
London.
from the Times? Okay, you're ridiculous. And you're the problem in our country. You lie about people like me. This is the first time you've ever talked to me. I want you to know, I'm a regular person like you. I'm also a mom. I have 3 kids. And we have to put up with the most unreal amount of bull because of little liars like you that take your job and turn it into political activism. Your job is the press. You should report the news, not lie. Not lie about it. You don't get to ask any more questions. I'm done with you because you're the cause. You're
One
the
more
cause
thing. You
of
call
our
the
country.
Democrats a
No.
party
You're
of
the cause of
pedophiles.
our
Do you have any
country being
response to
divided.
that?
You're the cause of our country being divided. You're the cause of President Trump almost being assassinated. You're the cause of everything wrong
where's
in
your
America.
evidence of those claims?
No, you're done. You're done. Yeah, go back.
Thank you.
You would think freedom of the press pushing them towards revealing the truth. Instead, it's all about the woke agenda and opposition smearing. Good on Rep Green.
Ben Shapiro, how does it feel for you to poison the American public and what you've been perpetuating? Racism, white supremacy, and the genocide that is being carried out on the Palestinian people.
How does it feel to stand for Hamas? Does that feel good to you? Do you feel good standing in solidarity with a terrorist group that has murdered 1,200
I feel very good
Jews
standing in
and keeps
solidarity
people
with Palestinian people who have been murdered by Israel by U.S. paid tax dollars and bonds, and you have continued to spew hate.
Hamas should not start a war on behalf of its citizens and then shoot its own
citizens.
citizens, and you stand for it makes you a disgrace
The
to
people
human
in
dignity and
Palestine
human
have been
rights.
occupied for 75 years.
Ah, yes, a pro-Palestine, yet somehow righteous they-them reporter. That's a lot of adjectives for one person. Well, if she's a they, is she really one person?
Welcome to Newsnight. And before we get to that, you back Donald Trump. You have a huge following online. What's your view on what you think it will take to motivate people to turn out for Donald Trump in the next few days and indeed on Tuesday?
You know, I don't think it's going to be very hard to motivate people. They've experienced what 4 years of Kamala Harris's leadership looks like. They've been paying more at the pump. They pay more for their homes. They pay more at every single service that they could possibly conceive of. People are sick and tired of the economic breakdown that has occurred under her watch and Joe Biden's watch. They've watched our border get overrun with millions upon millions of illegal immigrants who have not been vetted. Many of those illegals have turned around and murdered U.S. citizens, raped U.S. citizens. I think people have had enough, and they're looking to return to some semblance of normalcy in America. And
Of course, she would say that she tried, Joe Biden tried to sort out the border issue, and Donald Trump blocked it.
That's just incorrect. A fundamental misunderstanding of how everything works. When Joe Biden took office, there were executive orders that were currently in place that Trump had used. We had the Remain in Mexico policy. We had a whole host of policies that were controlling that action at the border, and they rescinded them on day one when they walked into the White House. They didn't even try to fix this problem until millions upon millions, a record number of illegals had entered our country and killed young people like Laken Riley.
But did she actually take that in before opening her mouth again? Of course not. In wokeness, you have to interrupt and raise pre-prepared points even if they had been demolished prior.
What I would say is that the US LGBTQ plus advocacy group, which is called Human Rights Campaign, they describe you as a political bully, an election denier, and talk about you as a MAGA bully, a Make America Great Again bully. What's your response to that?
I'm not even sure how that makes any sense, but bizarrely, you know, with the HRC, I think it's probably the most Orwellian name you've ever heard of. It's like writing a bill that says, you know, We're Gonna Save Puppies Act, and then in the actual bill, it's like, yeah, if you vote yes, we're gonna murder puppies. It makes no sense. Nothing they do has to do with human rights. It's about pushing rabid leftism on America, on corporations, and they're the ones who forced in policy sets in these major corporations that have resulted in those companies paying to help get transition surgeries for children. Okay, so we're talking about in California, places like Kaiser Permanente have given double mastectomies to 13-year-old girls.
Okay, we're gonna stop talking about trans here because you brought it up a lot.
Actually, you brought up the LGBTQ community and how he's viewed by them. Are trans people not under that community? This lady seems scared, honestly. Like if she let him actually get enough words in, some people will yell offense and phobias.
Yeah, and people love to laugh. I mean, clearly that's why people love you. But they also know that you have some shock value to you. I mean, you're on the cover of your book. You're wearing a fur, and you knew that there would probably be animal rights activists.
You know, this whole interview is becoming a defensive interview.
No!
Are you wearing leather shoes?
Yes!
Shut up.
I'm talking.
You know what I mean? I don't want to hear. You're wearing fur. You're wearing leather shoes.
I'm not an activist, but I'm saying
you're eating chicken.
Yeah.
You're eating meat. I don't want to hear this nonsense. Come to me with a paper belt, and I'll talk to you.
She shouldn't be wearing fur on the cover of her own book because some people choose not to eat meat. How stupid. What if she's holding a peanut? Will the people with peanut allergies also get offended?
Democrats portrayed the president as this great arbiter of morality and truth. They said that he somehow was a better standard bearer for protecting norms and the institutions of our country, and yet that wasn't true. They lied. You can go all the way back to 2022 when they were asked this question, and the White House continuously, consecutively lied over and over and over again. They could have simply said, to MJ's point, to Chuck's point, the president isn't going to put his thumb on the scales of justice. He's going to wait. He hasn't made a decision yet. Most people would have expected that. They would have respected that. I think most people, to your point, Chuck, believe if it was my child, I probably would have done the same thing. That's not the issue. Jake, the question here, the burden on the White House, I would argue, is the continuous lies. You said that you were better than this other guy. You criticized the other guy for all of these things, and now your DOJ is committing witch hunts, and this is now politicized. Well, you appointed Merrick Garland. You kept blaming Republicans for that. And I can only imagine, as I've talked to a lot of Republicans, if this were Donald Trump, and I know people are going to give him a lot of criticism for the pardons he's already given, but if this were him and Don Jr. or Eric Trump or Ivanka, I can only imagine what the headlines would have been. And I will say, if you're Democrats and you're trying to walk this straight line that we're somehow better than Republicans because we care more about the future and state of this democracy, I think that's trash now. No one believes it. No one believes. They've lost all credibility for the facade they portrayed for several years.
Do you see the look on their faces? The next script on how to respond to their own exposure and imminent canceling hasn't been published yet. Can't wait to hear them run their lines.
The top 10 fastest men of all time in terms of sprinters are all black, of African origin. Are you telling me that the white guys should say, hold on, we should be paid just as much as the black guys for sprinting? No, because they're not as fast.
Well, no, whoever wins gets the most.
Yeah, well, that's it. Do you know what? There is not one team in the Women's World Cup that could beat a junior male side in the A-League.
So what?
You'll earn the same as the top dogs if you do as good a job.
things you said about the trans community. You said this past October when they announced the Bud Light sponsorship that you'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, they'll have to accept me or denounce me when they know what and will know what they stand for. Are you
this guy's like, hey, this Canadian's not that Canadian.
Are you still going to use your fight time to kind of speak on that?
Here's the thing about Bud Light. 10 years ago, to be trans was a mental fucking illness. And now all of a sudden, people like you have weaseled your way in the world. You are an infection. You are the definition of weakness. Everything that is wrong with the world is because of fucking you. And the best thing is the world's not buying it. The world's not buying your fucking bull you're fucking peddling. The world is not saying, you know what, you're right. Chicks have dicks. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders. I don't want my kids being taught about, who they could in school. I don't want my kids being taught about, their preference. Like, dude, this guy is the enemy. You want to look at the enemy to our world? It's that right there. And these stupid questions. Sorry, I told the UFC I was being nicer. Lance, am I still good with this? Did I cross any lines?
Sean Strickland is the man, I tell you. Women are women and men are men. If you want to seek beer, just do that. Don't force your disgusting agenda down our throat. You can go do that on Blue Sky.
Human rights situation in parts of Africa and including in your own country. You yourself gained worldwide attention a few years ago when you said there was, quote, no room for homosexuality in Kenyan society. I want to know whether you still stand by that.
We have Kenyan law, we have Kenyan constitution, we have our tradition, we have our customs. We will continue to respect other people's customs as they respect our customs and our tradition. I am very clear that we respect everybody and what they believe in, but we also have what we believe in, and we expect to be respected for what we believe.
You don't see any reporter from any country bantering Joe Biden on the destruction of the nuclear family by the trans agenda, do you?
Push back a little bit on Antifa. I mean, FBI Director Christopher Wray called them an extremist group. He called them anarchists in congressional testimony.
But they're not always organized.
I agree, they're not organized.
No one has found Antifa. We've heard a lot about Antifa.
I mean, they have websites, they have recruiting online. They do have...
We talk, Sonny's brought up many times about the FBI Director speaking about white supremacy being the #1 target. He also said, that same trusted source, that it's a real thing, it's not a fiction, it's just not organized.
Right.
They ambush, they're awful.
He said it's merely an idea. Antifa is not a highly organized movement, nor is it merely an idea. It's a loose organization.
But it's so odd that we have not. Well, where are they? Because
they show up everywhere. There's protests and rioting.
But no, they don't come on television.
But no, but this is it is different. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
It is different than the Proud Boys. It's not as organized. Elected officials haven't appeared with them. We all agree on that. But Christopher Wray said, we're seeing people exploiting this situation after George Floyd's murder to pursue violence, extremist agendas, anarchists like Antifa and other agitators.
Again, there is no person you can point to and say, oh, that person represents Antifa. Every time they see 4 black people, they think it's Antifa.
No, it's to be honest, it's actually largely white organizations.
Well, that's what we said.
There are people online who openly identify as Antifa.
Well, they may, and I'm going to say, I think oftentimes things like Antifa are things that are thought up, ideas that are thought up and pushed and moved. Because for me, if Antifa, if we go with the name...
Anti-fascist.
It's anti-fascist. Right. So I don't know who's doing what. I do know that if you had asked a number of people of color...
Of course, Whoopi sides with Antifa. It's official. You can be stupid and still make it in Hollywood. All you need is to race bait.
Do you support age restrictions for puberty blockers and hormone therapies for trans kids?
I think that Justin Trudeau is trying to divide and distract Canadians by spreading disinformation about the decisions that premiers and parents are making.
What do you think?
What do you think?
I want to know your position.
What do you
own party policy? It's your own party policy. A party
I
convention.
think we should protect the rights of parents to make their own decisions.
What does it mean?
with regards to their children, and I believe that adults should have the freedom to make any decision they want about their bodies.
But minors.
How about
Surgeries and medical interventions for minors, as your own party members suggested?
Medical interventions like what?
That is the language that your party
What medical
used.
interventions?
Well, you would have to ask your party members.
What medical interventions?
Such as puberty blockers and hormone.
For minors?
Yeah. Yes.
Irreversible? You're talking about
I want to ask you, I'd like to understand your
I just want to be clear. No, I want to be clear. I just want to be clear.
For minors.
Puberty blockers for minors?
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
I think that we should protect children
What
and their
does that
ability
mean?
to make adult decisions when they're adults.
So
And
you
that
think
would protect-
only adults?
Only
adults should
Yes.
make you said yes? Just to be clear, you said yes, only adults should take puberty blockers?
I think we should protect children, let them make adult decisions when they become adults.
So that's
That's what I believe.
so that means you are against puberty blockers for kids under the age of 18. Is that
Yes.
clear? Okay. What about? Can I ask you about in Alberta?
By the way, I just want to make another comment on this. Justin Trudeau is again puffing out his chest, trying to divide Canadians and attack parents who are trying to protect their kids. He will, in the end, back down on this, just like he had to back down on his firearms policy, just like he had to back down on bringing in medical assistance and dying for people suffering from mental illness, just like he's backing down again and again and again. He will back down on this because he is not interested in protecting kids. He's interested in using this as a divisive wedge to distract from doubling housing costs and quadrupling carbon taxes on our people.
But it's so you're against puberty blockers for kids under the age of 18. What about opting
Yes,
in?
I am.
What about parents in Alberta having to opt in? Where do you stand
every
on that?
lesson,
No, that's a decision for the province.
How many different ways do these activists desire the answer? The man said, no, let adults decide on such a change. Move on.
You and Mike Tomlin are two of the few black head coaches in the league. I wonder what your relationship is like with them and your thoughts on Steve Wilkes joining that fold.
I have a very good relationship with Tomlin. We don't look at what color we are when we coach against each other. We just know each other. I have a lot of very good white friends that coach in this league as well, and I don't think it's a big deal as far as us coaching against each other. I think it's normal. Wilkes got an opportunity to do a good job. Hopefully he does it. And we coach ball. We don't look at color.
But you also understand that representation matters too, right? And that when young aspiring coaches or even football players, they see someone that looks like them, maybe grew up like them, that has to mean something.
Well, when you say you see you guys and look like them and grow up like them, means that we're oddballs to begin with. And I think the minute you guys stop making a big deal about it, everybody else will as well.
Like Morgan Freeman said, if you're trying to end racism, stop talking about it. This whole representation nonsense is just a subtle way to amplify racial divide.
Just curious, I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content. And I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for example. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
you
don't.
Can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why, because I don't actually use that for you.
But you said
a lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on a second.
my
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and
then how did you see that hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say so that you don't know what you're talking about.
That's a BBC reporter who was wailing about the hateful content he had seen on X since Elon took over. Okay, cool. Name one. That was when his brain stopped printing ridiculous claims.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. You know, and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said you can't do it with Zoom. Well, you know, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working, or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe
I have
that
answered
black
the
voters should
question.
trust in other
I have
players.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Why does the race of the reporters matter? You're black and he's white. Should people assume that the reason you asked such a horrible question is because of race? He's always going against reporters from CNN. Most of them are white. Why don't you bring that up?
The thing is that I think that the Hayes approach, the health at every size approach, has been documented to work. And it's been documented to work year after year.
What do you mean work? What do you mean work? Because a health at every size is a lie. If you starve yourself into damage, that's unhealthy. Or if you eat yourself into damage, that's not healthy.
You're making a lot of assumptions.
That's just not,
here,
that's not true.
You're making a lot of assumptions.
That's like saying
about
that,
weight
let's
being
say you were a
self-destructive.
smoker. Let's say you're a smoker and have black lungs, and you try to say that's healthy.
Health at every size? Are you joking?
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
Starting January, reporters are going to receive some hard truths again. Make reporters do their jobs again.
I don't want to be bringing back waterboarding. I don't want to be a country that tortures people, especially if we're the kind of country that's going to be using the military against our own citizens. This kind of thing concerns me.
What do you mean use against our own citizens?
I'm talking about
sending... You said blue states behave. What do you mean? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about sending the military into blue states to make them behave.
Getting
Gavin Newsom under control, getting J.P. Pritzker under control.
What are you
making
talking
sure?
about? What do you mean? Like sitting into the state capitol
to
to commandeer the state government?
I mean, I hope not, but he's definitely talked about that. I don't know why you're acting like you've never heard this
military to suppress, in the Black Lives Matter era, those protests in the street. He
was there himself.
I just make sure I understand your position. That you believe Donald Trump is going to use the military to set up effectively like coups in state capitals of states that he didn't win?
I think you're taking it a step or two.
No, she said make blue states behave, and she also said round up immigrants. That's not true. It's deport illegal immigrants.
Scott, I think you just need to be a little more precise about these attacks. No.
I'm sorry. Hold on. I mean, look. I think you're right. Let's be precise. Trump has wanted to use the military to do things domestically that actually the military is not allowed to do. I think that's the point that she's making.
Like what?
Like deport illegal immigrants. That is actually not a function of the military.
The military can absolutely be used to work with local officials to provide military resources, but working with other parts of the federal government and local officials. We already send the National Guard to the border.
Not against the will of the local officials or the will of the state government. We have a federalist government here.
The military is not supposed to take up arms against American citizens,
They're
period.
not. You keep saying that. This is about illegal immigration. You all keep saying American citizens.
Well,
it's
how
about
do we
illegal
know whether the people are illegal or not?
Well, when we
know after they're shot.
We have 1.6.
We know after they die.
We have 1.6 million people in this country who've already received deportation orders from courts.
CNN needs to start making dance videos on TikTok. They know nothing at all. The military can't be used to support deportation of illegal immigrants. Isn't it their job to keep the peace? Is infiltration not considered a threat to the peace of the nation?
I
And a lot of people are saying that it's hypocritical, etc., as if the other side doesn't do it. But what's your reaction to it?
I mean, I think all of the criticism is valid because, Democrats stand on this moral high ground all the time. And, they act so self-righteous. The reality is he didn't have to say anything in regards to, whether or not, his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, hey, man, I'm not focused on that right now. But since they were calling Trump a threat to democracy and they were saying that, nobody's above the law, but they were speaking about him, that's what they were running on. So when he kept saying things like, nobody's above the law, I respect, the jury's decision in regards to my son, he didn't believe that. But he didn't have to volunteer that lie to begin with.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Only because you don't know that it was a lie. We don't know why he changed his mind.
You really think he just changed his mind over Thanksgiving weekend all of a sudden?
No, I'm going to tell you what I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he changed his mind because he got sick of watching everybody else get over. And this is just my feeling, because at some point you get to the place where you just go, so I'm just going to follow the straight and narrow always, because that's what's expected of Democrats.
But that's their fault. They're the ones that go out there and they stand on this moral high ground.
Listen,
they don't have to do that.
I'm a Democrat. Tell me what the moral high ground is.
The moral high ground is nobody's above the law. I respect what the jurors are saying. He don't have to do that.
Now wait a minute, is Charlemagne becoming smart or something? Whoopi is forever a dummy, but Charlemagne, I am pleasantly surprised. The moral high ground is you guys screaming about Trump's unseen felony status. Then you turn around to erase an actual criminal's charges. Yeah, it's called hypocrisy.
I just want to say, Democrats, you can't let people tell you you're not taking the moral ground when we take the moral ground all the time. We fight for migrant rights, women's rights, gay folks' rights, trans rights, and every time we do, suddenly we're being told, oh, you're on the woke agenda.
But you are, Whoopi. All the issues you pointed out are fabricated. That's what the woke agenda does. It fabricates issues and then it cries about them, like migrant rights. No one is taking migrants' rights away. The woke agenda, however, uses the term migrant rights, like you just did, to push for illegal immigration. That's just dishonest language. Women's rights. Women in the West have every single right that men have. And then you mention gay and trans rights. Well, Adam here has every single right, again, as everyone else.
Yeah.
See, she does think they are better people. You baby killers and children transitioners. Please shut up.
Have you got anything you can tell us about
Yes, I have. I've got lots to tell you.
Go on, just give us.
Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved.
Is that your reaction to what people who want you off the spotty shortlist?
Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you'll be saved.
And what about you being stripped of your belt? I mean, that you must be very unhappy with that. What's your reaction to that?
Jesus loves me, and he loves you too, and he loves you too. He loves these people in here, and he loves everybody in the world. All you've got to do is repent of your sin, and you will be forgiven.
And do you think you can win Spotty? Do you want to win Spotty?
John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Whoever believes in him shall have eternal life and shall not perish.
Okay, Tyson. Any final message to those people who criticised you in recent? There's been a lot of criticism from people in signing petitions to the Scottish National people, to all sorts of people.
Yes.
Just give us your take on it. Do you stand by your comments?
Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved.
Okay, Tyson.
The only way is through Jesus into heaven. That's all I can say. The A to Z, the Alpha, the Omega. Jesus is the way, the key, and the only way into heaven.
Okay, Tyson, thank you so much. Thanks for stopping.
Now he's only being redundant because all they would with his answers is spin a web of lies and feed it to fellow wokies. Someone was very upset about not getting the Thanksgiving invite to Mar-a-Lago.
Both of you about some video. If you haven't seen this video yet of Elon Musk getting chummy with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving, they were apparently dancing in their chairs to YMCA. And, you know, there's Barron Trump next to the president-elect, but there's Elon Musk right next to him in his ex sweater, I think, and a blazer. But, you know, Tara, I mean, this does raise a lot of questions about what Elon Musk's role will be in this incoming administration. I mean, just this week, he has been targeting federal employees on X. He has been going after people like Colonel Alexander Vindman, accusing him of treason the other day on X. And he's been given this very big platform with the government. According to Donald Trump, he's going to be finding areas to cut in the federal government. What do you make of this relationship right now?
It's all really creepy, but money talks, and it's clear that Elon Musk has a motive here. He sees by cozying up to Donald Trump, he's going to have influence in ways that he's never had before. Not just being he's had a lot of influence being the richest man in the world. But this is a whole different thing. He's literally taking on the role of, favorite son, first lady, and shadow president. This is scary stuff for people. And Elon Musk has no business having a security clearance, all of these government contracts, and now this level of influence with the president of the United States. It's all dysfunctional. These guys are going through this group trauma therapy session with each other. And the fact that Elon Musk is the guest that won't leave, and that Donald Trump continues to give him this role, it speaks volumes. Why wasn't Elon Musk with his own family? Where is that? This is his new family now? This is his new project? Because he's so emotionally stunted that this is making him feel relevant. And the fact that as a country and in the world, geopolitics are going to be influenced by this guy going through whatever psychosis processing he's going through should scare everybody, because this is not just in the, but they're influencing and trying to target people also in other countries. This is not just here in the U.S. with this intimidation factor. So the tentacles of this are really, really long. We should keep paying attention to it. I'm glad that we are now.
Would you calm down? If you're nice, maybe you could drop by next year.
Hi Tucker, thank you so much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement Theory. This is the same...
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well...
I don't think I said that.
Well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times. And
really, when did I say that?
On your show.
I said whites are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that, because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that. I said native-born Americans are being replaced, including black.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
And
Americans black Americans have been, African Americans have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And you can't cite it.
Untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be.
She should actually be questioned as to why she thinks black and every other race of Americans do not somehow qualify as native-born. There should be some sort of fine when these reporters spread such lies.
There's a lot to unpack of what kind of went wrong for Democrats here. I think a factor is the working class feeling left behind, not reaching out to rural Americans. But what do you identify as Democrats got wrong? And it seems like you agree Biden maybe should have stepped aside sooner.
He definitely should have stepped aside. I said it a year ago. I was on camera, everybody was getting on me. I said a year ago, he needs to step.
You took some heat.
You remember, though, that he said, does everybody remember he said he was just going to do it for 4 years?
Right. Yeah. That's what I brought up.
Right. And did you think that once you know who stepped in, he said, well, there's nobody, we don't have anybody?
Well, the point is that it's not about who you're going up against when you know you're not what you used to be. And see, this is where covering sports puts me at a distinct advantage. I cover people every day where it's time to go, but you're holding on and you don't want to leave. People who cover the world of sports are accustomed to seeing that all the time. And so now here you are, to answer your question directly, you are the left, you leaned, and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centrist. You believe in compromise, negotiation, working with one another. Nobody gets to get everything they want. The problem is those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want. They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining and griping about it, because they understand that when when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls. And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message, because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you want as a result of it. And in this particular case, the Republicans were right.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No, I don't think they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high tax to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These are
less than 1% of the population.
I understand that,
but you know what? Add Eric
ridiculous.
during the NFL.
But see, but I think that's where the mistake is made.
Yeah.
You're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you. Yeah. But most of the voters out there don't think like that.
But that means they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have the information. If you're out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Well, again,
maybe
I agree
not.
with that.
Be uninformed.
Or you listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit. And that's unfortunately what most voters are doing.
Sunny is so far on the left, she can't be seen anymore. Not agreeing with you doesn't make people dumb. This is why you guys lost and might probably keep losing.
Governor, what has gone wrong with the rollout of the vaccine that we've seen phone lines jammed, web crashing?
There's a lot of demand. I mean, I think at the end of the day, excuse me.
If I could finish my question.
You just said what has gone wrong, so I'm answering the question. So are you going to give a speech or are you going to ask a question?
With all due respect, Governor,
you asked the question. I'm going to answer it.
I'm trying to finish my question.
No, you're giving a speech. You asked the question. You're going to ask how many questions? You get 3? They only got 1 question. Why do you get 3?
With all due respect, Governor, I'm just asking if I could finish my question.
You didn't. You finished the question.
My full question is, what went wrong with the rollout of the vaccine when we've seen phone lines jammed, websites? To complete it for you, Governor, we've seen websites crash and also senior citizens waiting overnight for the vaccine. We've seen it in Duval, Broward, Orange, and Lee counties.
And why was, like in Lee, why did that happen? Did you investigate why?
That's my question to you, Governor. You're the governor of the state. I'm not.
Okay, but you didn't investigate why that, like in Lee County, why was there a big line? Did you investigate why?
Could you tell us why?
Because we distributed vaccine to hospitals. The hospital said, first come, first serve. If you show up, we'll do it. So they didn't use a registration system. There wasn't anything that was done. And there's a lot of people are going to want to go ahead and get it. So are you saying there was no plan
then from the state to make sure that senior citizens didn't wait outside overnight?
So the state is not dictating to hospitals how, we're not into Carlos Magoya, how he runs his operations here. That would be a total disaster. These guys are much more to be able to deliver healthcare services than a state government could ever be.
This reporter went back to her network with a lie. She said, "He never even answered my question. I do not understand who gives these activists microphones and a news network contract."
Let's talk a bit about your tweets. Because it comes up a lot. Even today, it came up in anticipation of this. I mean, you do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy.
Well, yes, but I mean, honestly, conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Everything the woke media haven't been allowed to say is always termed a conspiracy theory.
Make a choice. You don't see, in terms of when you're going to engage. For example, even today, Elon, you tweeted this thing about George Soros. Well, I'm looking for it because I want to make sure I quote it properly. But you know what you wrote. But you basically.
I said it reminds me of Magneto. It's just like, calm down, people. This is not like made a federal case out of it.
You also, you said he wants to erode the very fabric of civilization, and Soros hates humanity. Like, when you do something like that, do you think
I think that's true. That's my opinion.
Okay, but why share it? Why share it? Especially, why share it when people who buy Teslas may not agree with you, advertisers on Twitter may not agree with you? Why not just say, hey, I think this. You can tell me. We can talk talk about it over there. You can tell your friends, but why share it widely?
I mean, this is freedom of speech. I'm allowed to say what I want.
You absolutely are, but I'm trying to understand why you do, because you have to know it puts you in the middle of the partisan divide in the country. It makes you a lightning rod for criticism. I mean, do you like that? Do your tweets hurt the company? Are there Tesla owners who say, I don't agree with his political position and I know it because he shares so much of it? Or are there advertisers on Twitter that Linda Yaccarino will come and say, you got to stop, man. Or, I can't get these ads because of some of the things you tweet.
I don't think he cares, man.
Tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself. He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedom, and America first. So,
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
No, why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you off? How about that?
See what I mean? You don't think men can have babies. You are a bloody conspiracy theorist.
History Month you find ridiculous. Why? You're going to relegate my history to a month? Oh, come on. What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay. Which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh. Why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it.
Now this is a wise old man. You don't want a Jewish History Month? Why not?
A lot of fashion weeks. This is the first time I've run into Jim Carrey. Wait, tell me, is it true you're wandering the streets? You need a date to the party? What's up?
No. I'm doing just fine. I just, there's no meaning to any of this. So I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am.
They're celebrating.
You got to admit it's completely meaningless.
Well, they say they're celebrating icons inside.
Celebrating
Do you believe
icons.
in
Boy, that is just the absolute lowest aiming, possibility that we could come up with. It's like icon. Do you believe in icons? I don't believe in personalities. I don't believe that you exist, but there is a wonderful fragrance in the air.
You don't believe certain icons have the power to make change, to think differently, to be bold, to inspire others? Artistry? You're one of them.
On the good foot. Ha! Yeah. You shut it down now.
I can't tell if he was high or he momentarily snapped out of the Hollywood hypnosis and was just crashing out.
What's your most important issue?
The economy, getting the interest rates down, getting it where we can afford to live in America. Right now, it's too expensive.
Okay, now let me maybe ask a slightly impolite question. But, if you can afford a boat, you're not hurting so bad, right? Because a boat costs a lot of money and it's a lot of upkeep.
Listen, nobody gave me. I earned everything that I've got. I'm retired military, retired power plant, and I am successful and retired with boats, jet skis, because I did it right. And everybody has that chance. Whether they choose or not, that's up to them.
I would never try to take anything away from you in that way. But what I'm asking is, groceries are probably a smaller part of your budget than, say, someone who's a little worse off. I think it's interesting that people who are a little bit more comfortable are still so concerned about the economy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Because I want my money to go further. I want inflation to go down. I want interest rates to go back down. I want all that. But that covers everybody in the economy.
Who the heck is this woman? Do they think rich people just grab cash from a safe? Do you know how inflation impacts the world? Hold on, you wanted him to vote for Kamala because he's already rich. So when she messes the economy up even more, he'd be able to feed off his boat sales? Is that the pitch?
Protesters. I have no political agenda, sir. I really don't.
What about all the
Nobody that I know does either. We're purely objective journalists.
Yeah, you are. What about...
Truly, sir, from the bottom of my heart.
Okay, I know.
A political dog in any...
Okay, what about all the compilation videos where they show thousands of newscasts in every city all reporting and saying the exact same thing?
Nobody tells me what to say, sir.
But there's compilation videos on YouTube and Twitter. They got millions and millions of views where every reporter in every city, at every station, they say the exact same thing, word for word. How do you explain that?
I don't know what you're referring to, so I can't really
Of course you don't. Of course you don't.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. Okay.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you so much for your time. It was
Thank
nice to
you.
chat with you.
It was great talking to you.
Have a good one.
Put your mask on. Watch out, the virus is going to get you. Oh, why do you got to wear? You didn't have your mask on the whole time, and now you're putting your mask on. Here's the guy. He's been standing here the whole time without his mask. Here's his camera dude with no mask on. But here he is. Now he's still trying to scare everyone. Now he's going to put his mask on while he reports. Keep spreading that fear, buddy. Keep spreading that fear. Why didn't you have your mask on before? Now he's not talking to me. Why didn't you have your mask on the last 10 minutes? Huh?
They're asking us to wear it per guidelines for television. To set
So you're told what to do. Exactly. You just told me you weren't told what to do. You just told me you could do whatever you want.
I said I was told not. I wasn't told what to say.
This isn't even a government official. This is a citizen, a smart one. Of course you guys are told what to do. Weeks before the elections, every woke network started describing JD Vance as slick. Every single one of them. He's so slick. It was so ridiculous to watch. You are fed lines, and that's okay. Get your money.
Charlottesville is an egregious symptom of what is wrong with parts of all over America. I'm not jumping to conclusions, sir. I'm being factual, and you are dismissing it. And perhaps if you would actually speak to the heart of these things, we could get to the bottom
hold on a
of
second,
some
Simone. Let's get a point of clarification. Ken, what are you disagreeing with exactly? Simone's argument is basically that you know what white supremacists are about. You know what Robert E. Lee evokes. That's what they used for the basis for coming together. What is your point of disagreement exactly?
Right. Well, my point of disagreement is that was an excuse to bring these groups together. The local blogger who got the permit to protest the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue then blew this up. That was an excuse. Look at how they got the permit. And can I finish, Simone? Will you just shut up for a minute and let me finish?
Pardon me, sir. You don't get to tell me to shut up on national television.
He got frustrated. She's yelling about decorum, but she couldn't let him have 5 seconds of uninterrupted speech.
Before we started reading about it, it could have been stopped in its tracks. Unfortunately, they didn't decide to make it public, but the whole world is suffering because of it.
You did say a few days ago, though, you did have a sense that this was a pandemic that was coming. So why was the United States not prepared with more testing?
We were very prepared. The only thing we weren't prepared for was the media. The media has not treated it fairly. I'll tell you how prepared I was. I called for a ban from people coming in from China long before anybody thought it was. In fact, it was your network. I believe they called me a racist because I did that. It was many of the people in the room. They called me racist and other words because I did that, because I went so early. So when you say we weren't prepared, had I let these tens of thousands of people come in from China a day, we would have had something right now that would have been, you wouldn't have even recognized it compared to where we are. How many people have passed away? How many people have died as of this moment? You could multiply that by a factor of many, many, many. So when you say that I wasn't prepared, I was the first one to do the ban. Now other countries are following what I did. But the media doesn't acknowledge that. They know it's true. They know it's true, but they don't want to write about it. Yeah.
Because woke reporters would rather support the woke agenda, they did call it travel ban racism. Before the mask obsession, they said the lockdown was his fascism showing. CNN needs to pick a side before people start tuning to podcasts instead.
Been in government?
Did serve in the previous administration.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. Oh, I see. You didn't tell me that, John. You didn't tell me that. Did serve in the previous administration. You mean the Obama administration. Thank you for telling me that. See, there's a typical fake news deal.
You asked me when she was appointed. I told you when she was appointed.
You're a third-rate reporter, and what you just said is a disgrace, okay? You asked me, you said, sir, just got appointed. Take a look at what you said now. I said, when did this person, how long in government? Well, it was appointed in the Obama administration. Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much. You will never make it. Go ahead, please.
Does anyone know of this John? Well, guess he was right. John's not making out of the trenches.
Quentin, you have put Margot Robbie, a very talented actress, actor, in your film. She was in with Leonardo in Wolf of Wall Street, I, Tonya. This is a person with a great deal of acting talent, and yet you haven't really given her many lines in the movie. And I wondered, I guess that was a deliberate choice on your part, and I just wanted to know why that was, that we don't hear her actually speaking very much. And Margot, I wanted you to also comment about being in the film in this part.
Well, I just reject your hypotheses.
So, this is about the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's almost as if a writer can create his piece however he pleases. Also, the feminist reporter didn't even choose the best recommendation movie. The one with Leonardo DiCaprio is Wolf on Wall Street, and she didn't speak too much either. Guess why? Because her character didn't. If a man was given less lines compared to a woman, they would have found an artistic interpretation.
We are seeing a global trend of the far right surging. It isn't just happening here, but let's bring you back to the US and to our local gangster, Donald Trump. He's not even president yet, and he's already spending his time sitting in his golden palace, Mar-a-Lago, muscling other countries like he's Tony Soprano with a social media site, doing things like, reportedly, debating whether or not to invade Mexico, threatening BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with 100% tariffs if they don't commit to trading in dollars and not their own currencies, demanding Hamas release all hostages being held in Gaza before his inauguration, or there will be, quote, to pay in the Middle East. Even reportedly threatening Canada. When Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago this weekend to try to talk Trump out of his 25% tariff threat, Trump apparently suggested that if Canada can't handle the tariffs that would violate the NAFTA upgrade Trump himself signed into law, the USMCA, they should just become the 51st state. Just become this 51st state instead and allow Trudeau to be reduced to governor of the state of Canada, which caused the Prime Minister and others to laugh nervously. Some are writing that off as just a joke. Just a few hours ago, Trump posted this obviously AI photo of him standing on a mountaintop next to the Canadian flag, looking off into the distance with the caption, "Oh, Canada." And for the record, he appears to be looking at the Matterhorn, which is on the border between Switzerland and Italy, not Canada. Oh, and let's not forget, this is the same Donald Trump who at one point seriously wanted to buy the nation of Greenland, even possibly trade it for Puerto Rico. I wonder what this guy has against Puerto Rico. I'll just keep noodling on it. I'm sure I'll figure it out. Bottom line, this is how Trump operates on the world stage. He acts like he's everybody's boss, like he's the king of the world, which is bad news for basically everybody, unless your name is Vladimir Putin, the boss to Trump's underboss. The question now is, will any other leader stand up to him? And who? Who becomes the leader of the free world when Donald Trump ends Pax Americana as we know it? As Nicholas Grossman writes for The Bulwark, there is no undoing damage in history. It is up to those with power and influence to limit it now, and up to future generations to deal with it later. The post-Cold War international system has serious flaws, but at least there are clear enough rules that charges of hypocrisy, even rules more honored in the breach, will be preferable to the lawlessness Trump's second term could invite.
This is why MSNBC's views have tanked down the ocean. Joy is the most incorrect name for this person. Bitter would have been more appropriate. I'll let Scott Jennings respond.
Yeah, thank God we have a president-elect who's willing to say it. We've had Americans held hostage since October the 7th, and we've lacked a president that had the testicular fortitude to get our people back. This is outrageous that these Americans were taken and murdered, and we've basically stood back and given lip service to both sides, this and that. I want to hear. It's wrong. And this is the wages of weakness of a weak president. All the things you just listed, it's because we have a weak America. And now we're going to have a strong America. And I think Donald Trump's going to have far better success. We had world at peace when he was president. We had a peace agreement in the Middle East. But when you take Americans hostage and you murder Americans, you better know the President of the United States is going to do something about it. And we've not known that for 4 years.
And there you have it.
Now that Trump has won, you say that you don't think cable news will ever truly cover him honestly again. Why?
Well, not even just cable news, no network. Nobody, because they didn't do it before, so why would they do it now? They're scared to death. He's the president of the United States of America.
Have you watched The View? Yeah.
Well, let's be honest. Sonny, I saw you have to apologize a couple times last week, so somebody's coming with some notes from downstairs.
I'm not apologizing. Okay. I'm making a legal note as an attorney of law.
Because you know we have a petty president, our incoming,
yes.
that is going to be very litigious.
Who is litigious, but that doesn't mean that's not a mistake.
We check ourselves. But what does not normalize?
Just say the show is televised gossip. It's fine.
Actually, came very early on. They didn't run a process. They made an excuse of $317 million in the kitty. They kept the same campaign manager and said, we will anoint this faulted, broken candidate who was inconsequential in her vice presidency, lost in 2019, as you detailed, complete loser in 2020, never could articulate anything, had no compassion for people. And her own advocates, let's not forget this. I remember the minute this happened, I was in Europe. She went on to The View. All those women wanted her to win. They threw her a softball. They threw her a second softball. She was so weak as a candidate, she couldn't even answer that she would do something different. It ricocheted around the world. She was finished.
Well, let me go.
They will never do that again.
Guess what? They still tried to defend her. Oh no, it's the American people. They are the problem. They are brainwashed, misogynistic, and racist.
We investigate
Just to be clear, this investigation began under Donald Trump.
Okay, and all during, the bottom line is the DOJ said there's nothing there.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
They said they didn't have enough to indict. That shouldn't be the standard.
No, it's a charge, dear.
Okay,
no,
first year.
No, yes, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for the response. Okay,
hold on. I'm just going to stop it right here because we're not going to get off on a wrong foot. Please do not address a grown woman as dear in a condescending tone. Do not do that at my table. You can continue.
He is definitely better than most people, because every sentence would end with dear from that moment on. Say, CNN, how about you guys make skits?
So after all that time and money, are we going to get a rebate? We're not getting any money back? Okay, well.
Nothing.
What do you think of it?
It kind of shows you there's no such thing as karma, doesn't it? I mean, it's like the Easter Bunny and affordable housing. It doesn't exist. I mean, I feel like eventually, I think we will get him out. But it's going to take a while, and let's hope that there's not too much damage that he does. And so, if you think about what happened in the past, how long is it since Election Day?
It's in about 2-3. It's been about 3 weeks.
About 2 years.
It feels like a decade, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that Kamala Harris says to American people, "I'm going to help you buy a house," that did not resonate as much as they're eating cats and dogs in Ohio. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? We're in a weird sort of state right now.
Okay, are you guys gonna cancel Christmas in your homes though?
Britain doesn't owe a single penny or an apology. We've apologized in 1840. Prince Albert made an abject apology at the time. That's been done and dusted. We've spent a sum equivalent to 2% of our GDP enforcing an end to the slave trade. We spent £20 million, a sum equivalent to £20 billion today, 43% of our entire budget freeing the slaves in 1833. This is quite simply an avaricious cash grab by the Commonwealth countries, who are largely middle-income countries. Look, it goes without saying, slavery was horrific. The horrors that were endured by the slaves, certainly if they were alive today, they would deserve reparations. And if we had this discussion 200 years ago, I would be in favor of reparations. But the reality is there are no victims of British Empire slavery alive today. And reparations are fundamentally a matter of tort law, that's TORT law, which is to put the victim back into the position they were in before the harm was caused. And there aren't any. In fact, the descendants of slaves today are far better off and have a far higher quality of life than if their ancestors had never left West Africa. The richest black diaspora in the world are African Americans, then they're followed by black Canadians and black Brits. You know, the Caribbean nations have incomes which are 10 times higher than those in West Africa. Their life expectancy is 10 to 15 years longer. You know, Iman, you're not a victim of slavery. You made actually quite a nice life out of talking about slavery, and you wouldn't be here on national TV discussing this were you not a descendant of a slave. It's time for us to move on from that. This is 6 generations ago. In two generations ago, my family were deported to slave labor camps in Russia, in Siberia and Kazakhstan from Poland. My family were tortured and murdered. My grandfather's brother was murdered in the Katyn massacre by the Russians as well. I don't feel like I'm a victim. I'm not claiming for compensation. That's within my 2 generations, let alone 6 or 7 generations. None of this is about slavery at all. If it was, people like Iman would be campaigning actively against the 10 million slaves living in Africa.
Many people do. No, it's actually 50 million slaves around the world, and we do talk about it. You just don't talk about the slavery
Let me
of
finish
black
now.
people.
Let me finish. The International Labour Organization says that 7 in every 1,000 Africans is a slave today.
Slavery was everywhere,
Hundreds of slaves are sold every week in Libya, as CNN has reported. Pakistan is the global center of slavery around the world. So why are you not protesting outside the embassies of Cameroon and Sudan? There are 800,000 slaves in Cameroon today. The fact that you're more concerned about
Industrial Revolution,
the fact that you're more concerned about things that happened 200 years ago rather than the plight of people today tells me all that I need to know about the real cause here. This is about undermining Britain and the West, and it's an avaricious cash grab. The fact that you're more concerned about the past than the living horrors of people in Africa says everything.
Education and freedom is being ripped away from the women in the Middle East. Fight for those who need fighting for, or go get an actual job. BLM activism is not a career. Sorry.
What is that change going to look like, Don? What practically, your father as president, I think you would even say, was a divisive figure. What's it going to look like in the second term?
I don't think he was a divisive figure at all. I think the media created divisiveness around him. They lied about Russia collusion. They said he was a traitor. They went after him in every which way as possible. If the media actually starts being an honest broker, talking about the things that he did, the prosperity he brought, the peace deals that he signed around the world, rather than the disaster that we're living right now, I think you'd do everyone in the country a big favor.
I know immigration's important to him. I covered the family separation crisis closely. Will we continue to see policies like separating 5,000 children deliberately from their parents?
You mean the Obama administration?
You know they didn't do that, sir. Will there be a second family separation policy?
It's MSDNC, so I expect nothing less from you clowns. Even today, even 48 hours later, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait with your lies and with your nonsense. So just get out of here.
These questions were brought up less than 2 days after the first assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. Joy, leave, and 6 colored rainbows, I guess. Would you like to hear an intelligent rant? Well, not a rant, an intelligent monologue.
John, I've not known you long, but I love you already. But I have to say that it's disingenuous to claim that the biases that are exhibited on Fox biases exhibited on MSNBC. It's difficult to suggest that these corporations operate as anything other than mouthpieces for their owners in BlackRock and Vanguard. And unless we start to embrace, and also, mate, like spiritually, if I may use that word in your great country, we have to take responsibility for our own perspective. Been on that MSNBC, mate. It was propagandist nutcrackery on there. I went on a show called Morning Joe. It was absurd the way they carried on.
Good Morning Joe.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It wasn't morning. There was no one called Joe there. No one could concentrate. They didn't understand the basic tenets of journalism. No one was willing to stick up for genuine American heroes like Snowden. No one was willing to talk about Julian Assange and what he suffered trying to bring real journalism to the American people. And I think to sit within castle of MSNBC throwing rocks at Fox News is ludicrous. MSNBC better. Make MSNBC great again.
My friend, I would love...
Russell Brand, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Mr. President. Thank you. Today, 600,000, 25,000 deaths. I know you want to blame the WHO, but I've spoken to hundreds of people across the country in the last few weeks who say they still can't get tested and that they aren't social distancing because
so
they...
the governors, Excuse me. I know your question. You ready? The governors are supposed to do testing. It's up to the governors. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President,
go ahead, please. Quiet. Quiet.
If we could just get back to May 1. That they are not, Mr. President, they are following your lead, that they are not social distancing.
The governors are doing the testing. It's now not up, and it hasn't been up to the federal government. Go ahead.
President, I'm going to have a quick follow on the WHO, but if
I told them when they put this guy here, it's nothing but trouble. He's a showboat. If you keep talking, I'll leave, and you can have it out with the rest of these people. If you keep talking, I'm going to leave, and you can have it out with them.
They were so obsessed with making COVID accusations. They wanted his presidency to fail so bad. That's why wokies can never say they love their country. I've barely ever heard any of them say it. They love their agenda more.
Do you think that your tweets and your name calling are turning people off?
No, I think I wouldn't be here if I didn't have social media.
Well,
but the media is fake. And frankly, if I didn't have social media, I'd have no way of getting out my voice.
Do you know what you told me a long time ago when I asked why you keep saying fake media?
Yeah.
You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe you.
I don't have to discredit you.
But that's what you told me.
You've discredited yourself.
You know, I didn't want to have this kind of angry.
Of course you did.
No, I didn't.
Of course you did.
No, I didn't.
Well, then you brought up a lot of subjects that
Well, I said
were
I'm going to ask you
inappropriately brought
tough
up.
questions.
They were inappropriately brought up right from the beginning. No, your first question was, this is going to be tough questions.
Why?
You don't ask Joe Biden. I saw your interview with Joe, the interview with Joe Biden.
I never did a Joe
It
Biden
was a
interview.
joke. The interview, 60 Minutes. I see Joe Biden giving softball after softball. I've seen all of his interviews. He's never been asked a question that's hard.
Okay, but forget him for a minute.
No, but you start with me.
You're president. And
Excuse me, Leslie, you started with me. Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk. There's no way to talk.
And that was the shortest 60-minute interview ever. Honestly, if the same viciousness applied to Trump was applied to Biden, he would have dropped out 2 years into his term.
Was Nicole the love of your life?
What do you mean, Peter?
You were married for 10 years.
Listen, we raised children. I mean, how do you answer that? How do you answer that question? She's someone that I plan on getting married again.
You do?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And having kids?
Absolutely.
But Nicole was a major part of your life and a love of your life at the time.
I loved Nick very much. There's no question.
Would you like Nicole to remarry?
Yes. I want Nicole to be happy. That's what I want.
And do you have a relationship where you talk, it's a parenting relationship, and talk professionally about each other's work?
Listen, here's the thing, Peter. Yeah. You're stepping over a line now. You're stepping over a line. You know you are.
Well, I suppose they're questions
Peter,
that people want to know.
Peter, you want to know. Take responsibility for what you want to know. Don't say what other people. This is a conversation that I'm having with you right now.
You're right.
Okay, so I'm just telling you right now, okay? Just put your manners back in.
Peter sounds like a teenage girl trying to get information on a divorcee so she can strengthen her fantasy relationship with Tom Cruise.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
What were you expecting him to say? Go on a middle-class family rant like someone we used to know.
On the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. I mean, certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. I mean, it's that type of ideological thing.
I never really talk about left or right.
Anyways, I don't
really believe in that.
Okay, a lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but.
Like who?
I don't know who, but...
Well, you're the one who asked the question, so you must know somebody.
Okay. I'm sure there's some out there, but anyways, the point of this question is, I mean, why should Canadians trust you with their vote, given, not just the sort of ideological inclination in terms of taking the page out of Donald Trump's book, but
what are you
also
talking about? What page? What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying
in terms of turning things quite dramatically in terms of Trudeau and the left wing and all of this. I mean, you make quite a it's quite a play that you make on it. So I'm
not
just
sure.
wondering.
I don't know what your question is.
Then forget that. Why should Canadians trust you with their vote?
Common sense. Okay. Common sense for a change. We're going to make common sense common in this country. We don't have any common sense in the current government. The guy prints $600 billion, grows our money supply by 32% in 3 years. That's growing the money 8 times faster than the economy. No wonder we have the worst inflation in 4 decades. I'm going to cap spending, cut waste, so that we can balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates. You'll want to be able to pay your mortgage again? You want to be able to afford rent? Then you have to vote for Pierre Poilievre, because I'm the only one with a common sense plan that will bring back the buying power of your paycheck.
give the man a page. If you were going to give such a dumb interview, you should have at least read the Trump book you keep mentioning. Did Joy Behar teach you how to ask questions?
On the right have acknowledged that he inherited from the previous administration.
Well, that's fake news.
Well, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
If you look at the unemployment among African Americans during his years and during the Obama years, clearly it was much better. If you look at opportunity zone districts, if you look at support and financial support to historical colleges, clearly it's better off under his administration than the previous administration. So, I don't want to get caught into politics. Just because I'm a Democrat, my party feels as though that
I like to traffic in facts, and much of what you just said is patently false. But I do want to. Representative Jones, this is my show. I'll ask questions. Give me a second.
You had me on your show.
I know,
but don't cut me off when I'm giving an answer.
I'm not cutting you off, but I do want. Are you a paid campaign surrogate? Are you being compensated?
Let me be clear. You get paid to shape a liberal narrative. You get paid to attack this president. I don't get a dime for this president. I don't get a dime from the campaign. Everything I've done has been me and based on my principles. And see, that's the problem. When an African American that's elected official,
I did not raise your
race. Let me finish now. Let me finish.
Whoa. You're not going to imply that I asked that question because you're black.
So don't ask me that. You only ask me that because I don't fit your narrative. This president never offered anything. I don't want anything from this president. It's what I can do for my country. And you need to accept that many other African Americans and others support this president because of his policies. And to insult me to say, am I getting paid?
I've asked the same question. I have asked the same question of Democrats who come on.
MSNBC and their narrative to keep blacks silent who happen to support this president. Why can't I be like white liberals or other whites? Nobody questioned they're getting paid. So I have to get paid. Do you ask Democrats? Do they get paid?
I just said if you
paid by Joe Biden.
I just said to you.
Have you ever asked any host on your show that they've been paid by Joe Biden?
State Representative Vernon Jones.
That's actually quite the dumb claim. Shout out to Obama. So Trump inherited your economy, employment, tax policies, and everything else. Inherited is an insane term. Many will say his term was a better time. But let's hold that. What did Biden do with the Trump inheritance? Or does inheritance not apply to your incompetent mentees?
You obviously give a long leash to your fighters about, what they can say when they are up there with a UFC microphone and you are getting into territory of homophobia, transphobia. Is there...
I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
I'm
free speech. Control what people say. Gonna tell people what to believe. Gonna tell people... I don't tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them. What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want.
I think he's confusing the UFC with WWE. Honestly, the language is very fitting. What else do you call controlling how far an adult can go? It's a leash. And that's why free speech has the word free, no leashes.
You're a Yale-educated attorney, and I want to get your take on what we saw happen last week, those immunity arguments before the Supreme Court, where Trump's team, his attorney, argued that a president could order the military to stage a coup and to have their political opponent assassinated and be immune from prosecution unless this theory that they were impeached and then convicted by the Senate. Do you share the view that presidents are basically above the law?
Look, Caitlin, I think we have to be careful about imputing words into the president's attorneys that they didn't actually say. What the president's attorney said is that what the president's attorney said, Caitlin, to be clear, is that there is a checks and balances system in our Constitution. Now, some things the president does, private acts, are liable to criminal penalties, but most of the things that the president does in their official duties, we have a system of impeachment, we have a system of checks and balances, the legislative branch that I'm a member of, the judicial branch. I did not read the president's attorneys as saying that the president could order a coup. The president's attorneys are saying that the constitutional checks and balances system would address that problem, and I think that's an important distinction.
But let me stop you right there, because I listened to this. It's John Sauer, Trump's attorney, and when he was asked by one of the justices if the president could order the military to stage a coup and would it count as an official act, meaning he couldn't be prosecuted for it, he said it would depend on the circumstances. I mean, what circumstances warrant a president ordering the military to stage a coup?
Well, first of all, he did say it depends on the circumstances. So that opens up a whole lot of avenue for context there. But more importantly, Caitlin, he's just saying that would count as an official act.
But that's there are a number. That's an official act in your view too.
But could I finish the answer to the question, Caitlin? An official act. There are a number of checks and balances in our system. There's the impeachment process. There's the budgeting authority that Congress has. There are a number of ways where Congress has a check and balance control over the President of the United States. All he's saying is that the criminal liability procedures that exist in this country don't cover the president's official acts. And by the way, how could anybody disagree with that, Caitlin? Should Barack Obama be prosecuted for killing an American citizen via a drone strike? There are a number of examples in American history where if you apply the standard, the lawfare standard of the Biden administration against Donald Trump, it would make the presidency impossible to actually execute the law.
Yeah,
so
I know
in the
that's
name
the
of
argument
taking down their political opponent, Caitlin, these guys are really pushing a legal theory that I think would destroy the presidency, whether a Democrat or Republican was in charge.
That's Caitlin Collins, one of the ones who can't get it out. Not only can't she get reasonable questions out, she also can't be quiet while a person answers.
One of the major issues, and it's a holdover from sort of colonial Victorian, is the issue of preference in many African countries. In Kenya, to be gay, the LGBT community is illegal. They just want to have equal rights, the same privacy and equality as all other Kenyans do. Is that something that you aspire to for your country?
I want to be very clear, Christiana. I will not engage in a subject that is of it is not of any major importance to the people and the Republic of Kenya. This is not an issue, as you would want to put it, of human rights. This is an issue of society, of our own base as a culture, as a people, regardless of which community you come from. This is not acceptable.
You don't call the shots in another person's home. The average African doesn't even want this woke culture to hover in their forests, much less be rooted in their children. If you guys like it so much, just enjoy it.
With the revelations from cricket's Azim Rafiq and footballers still taking the knee, what does this say about racism as a continuing undercurrent in present-day Britain?
I think the same point I made earlier applies, is that things need to be particularized rather than generalized, as a general rule, let's say. And so this cricket player was facing racism by his own account. The question is who, when, what exactly? Because otherwise it degenerates into something like a discussion of structural racism. And when it becomes abstracted up to that level, first of all, that pits group against group, which I think is entirely counterproductive. And it actually doesn't address the issue. You know, racism is a global and vague term.
Sorry, but why would you possibly do that? What did that mean?
Because I said it was a global and vague term.
The inverted commas as if it's not a real thing.
No, that isn't what it meant.
Well, what did it mean then? Explain.
It meant that it's indicative of low-resolution thinking. And what I mean by that is we use all these terms frequently in discussions like this that are containers of undifferentiated content.
He was repeatedly called abusive terms directly linked to his ethnicity.
By who?
By not just one, but repeated members of the Yorkshire Cricket Club. He's had people contacted him. If it walks like a duck, Jordan, talks like a duck, it's a duck. It's racism.
I'm not denying his experience.
Right.
What I asked was exactly who and when, and you just answered that question. So I would say those specific people should be held specifically to account for their actions before any movement up the abstraction hierarchy to a discussion of something like structural racism, which I don't think is helpful.
Oh, the bald guy is dumb. Wow, I've never watched someone so stupid, and he's not even acting. He really doesn't understand the point of using air quotes with racism. He's probably one of the people who believes that mansplaining is a smart word.
The Ben Shapiros of the world. Yeah. These people who don't necessarily have the intellect to have honest discussions, but yet they're able to become millionaires because they're actually just circularizing and promulgating this fear.
There are many, many confounds when it comes to these particular issues, and unless you remove the statistical confounds, you end up with trying to blame vague, shadowy figures like implicit bias, which are innately, insanely difficult, if not impossible to measure.
I don't know what he just said.
I'm sorry.
Of course you don't. No one expects you to know anything, man. Just chase the shadow of racism, you'd be all right.
Now, you've written this morning about immigration, and you write that we cannot assume that all cultures are equally valid. So which cultures, in your view, are less valid than others?
Cultures that believe in child marriage, for instance, or that women don't have equal rights. I actually think it's extraordinary that people think that's an unusual or controversial thing to say. Of course, not all cultures are equally valid. I don't believe in cultural relativism. I believe in Western values, the principles which have made this country great. And I think that we need to make sure that we continue to abide by those principles to keep the society that we have now.
So which particular cultures then would you say are less valid? Because as you've said, your words, not mine, some people think that that is a controversial thing to say. So which cultures would you specifically say are less valid than others?
So it's not about labeling cultures. Culture includes a lot of things. I'm not talking about cuisine, I'm talking about customs. And I think that cultures where women are told that they should not work. I would knock on doors. I'm sure Penny and Jake had this. You'd knock on doors and you'd see somebody at the door who says, oh, I can't speak to you, I will get my husband. I don't think that's as equally valid as our culture. The point I was making in the op-ed was about immigration. That immigration is something which we need to make sure we get right. We didn't before. And there were 3 things I said we needed to do. 1, numbers matter. I was quite surprised that Rob actually misrepresented, but I've been saying numbers do matter. Culture matters even more. Who comes into the country is absolutely critical. And leadership. You need to start from the top. It's no good simply saying we're going to lower immigration and outsource it. It has to come very much from the Prime Minister himself or herself.
Are you saying, though, that if somebody in their culture who lives here in the UK, who might be a British citizen, who answered the door to you and said, I won't speak to you, I'd like you to speak to my husband instead, are you saying, you have said their culture is less valid, are you saying that people with those beliefs shouldn't be welcome in the UK?
I am saying that if we want to have a well-integrated society, we need to make sure that we have a shared culture and a shared identity. This is a multi-ethnic society. That's obvious. I'm a black woman sitting here talking to you. But there is a difference between being multi-ethnic and being multicultural. I grew up in a place that was multicultural, and yet everybody looked the same. Conflict arises when you emphasize difference. We need to emphasize the thing that we share. Being British, British values, the things that we talked about, freedom, equal rights, personal responsibility, not discriminating people because of their orientation. There are some cultures that do that. I don't think that a culture that thinks gay people should be stoned is as valid as ours. This is not a controversial thing to say.
But aren't you by...
She kept trying to make the black lady trip on her words. There are different cultures in the world, and if you'd let cultures integrate with yours, you should share basic foundational beliefs. Some cultures are dangerous, and honestly, the UK is soft. If you keep letting any and everyone in, you would lose control. That's all. This is a creator who always goes hard on The View. He edits himself so flawlessly into the space and gets them to shut up in 10 seconds.
Like, he used him as his puppet, and it exposed what many of us have been saying about Tucker Carlson. He's a Kremlin puppet who doesn't know what he's talking about.
It's just such a disgrace, I think, to our country that an American would give him any kind of platform to propagandize.
Wait, if I may, I'm amazed at the level of self-projection going on here. I mean, Alicia, you work for ABC, Tucker works for himself. Objectively, you are a puppet and he's not. And Sonny, you're basically saying that Tucker shouldn't be allowed to have a voice. That's the opposite of the democracy that you preach every time we're here. And finally, none of you had any examples on what Tucker has said that was a lie or propaganda. But I'm too nice, so I will give you another chance. Give me some specific examples to back your claims. Let's go.
Yes, crickets. Calling Tucker Carlson a puppet is just projection.
Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border. The border crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
Misogyny and sexism.
Sure, all that. And the price of butter. Sonny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election. But when nothing really comes to mind, I was like, cha-ching. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They called him Hitler. They call these things. America rejected them, and instead of coming back and saying we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sonny.
Keep it going, Sonny. We would love to see you whine for 4 years and then hit refresh, then whine again in 2028.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs. Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs.
Just a handful of crimes are being committed by people who broke in. The grape cases aren't that many. The murders are nothing compared to serial killers. Again, it's all agenda, until the US becomes an English-speaking El Salvador.
Do you find it hard for celebrities to talk to media about their sexuality?
What on earth are you on about?
I was referring to an interview given to Attitude magazine a few years ago.
But what is your question?
I was wondering if you find it difficult for celebrities to talk about their sexuality.
I don't find it difficult for celebrities to talk about their sexuality. Are you asking me about my sexuality?
Sure.
Why? Thank you.
This is my theory. The more famous people belong to a social group, the deeper their claws sink into the brains of impressionable children. That's all, but it looks like no one cares about celebrities as much anyway.
Do you think you could get elected in Texas being anti-gun?
Do I think I could get elected in Texas being anti-gun? One thing that if me in politics is to give you a direct statement right there is be playing a game that I'm not interested in playing.
Okay,
to give you a direct statement right there.
Who is in charge of Matthew McConaughey's media appearance, and why would they ever put him on The View?
Mr. President, after 3.5 years, do you regret at all the lying you've done to the American people? On
all the what?
All the lying, all the dishonesties.
That who has done?
You have done. Tens of thousands.
Go ahead, please. Please. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the payroll tax.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is to just not respond. What kind of question is that? What's the expected response? Or are you just trying to rage bait so you can up your views?
Let's talk about your tweets, because it comes up a lot. Even today, it came up in anticipation of this. I mean, you do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy.
Well, yes, but I mean, honestly, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was a pretty big deal. There was Twitter and others engaged in active suppression of information that was relevant to the public. That's a terrible thing that happened. That's election interference.
How do you make a choice? You don't see, I mean, in terms of when you're going to engage. I mean, for example, even today, Elon, you tweeted this thing about George Soros. Well, I'm looking for it because I want to make sure I quote it properly. But I mean, you know what you wrote. But you basically.
It reminds me of Magneto's. It's like, calm down, people. This is not like made a federal case out of it.
You also, you said he wants to erode the very fabric of civilization, and Soros hates humanity. Like, when you do something like that, do you
I think that's true. That's my opinion.
Okay, but why share it? Why share it? Especially, why share it when people who buy Teslas may not agree with you, advertisers on Twitter may not agree with you? Why not just say, hey, I think this. You can tell me, we can talk about it over there, you can tell your friends, but why share it widely?
I mean, this is freedom of speech. I'm allowed to say what I want.
You absolutely are, but I'm trying to understand why you do, because you have to know it puts you in the middle of the partisan divide in the country. It makes you a lightning rod for criticism. I mean, do you like that? People today are saying he's an anti-Semite. I don't think you are.
No, I'm definitely. I'm like a pro-Semite, if anything.
I believe that probably is the case.
Yes.
But why would you even introduce the idea that would be the case?
I mean, look, we don't want to make this a George Soros interview.
No, God, no. I don't want to at all. But what I'm trying, even came up though in the annual meeting. I mean, do your tweets hurt the company? Are there Tesla owners who say, I don't agree with his political position, and I know it because he shares so much? Or are there advertisers on Twitter that Linda Yaccarino will come and say, you got to stop, man. Or, I can't get these ads because of some of the things you tweet.
I'm reminded of the scene in The Princess Bride. Great movie.
Great movie.
Where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, Offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care.
What do you mean, why does he tweet his views? If he suppressed his views because of money or his reputation, won't you guys call him a sellout? If he posted more left-leaning ideas, he would be applauded for his activism. Hypocrites.